Once more, Slick and Shiny Tongue-in-Cheek Productions takes a look at Manor, Pennsylvania. And we shall move on to take a look at an old map. This time I found a map for you from 1857, which is pretty old. As you see the map, it doesn't look like a new map, and it's not. I would like to have it a lot more precise and defined, but for our purposes it'll suffice. This is Manor up here, called Manor Station back at that time. Manor had only been in existence as a railroad station, or as much of anything, for about 5 years at this point. But it already had the depot here. This was the railroad station. And it also had a post office. Its post office had been established in 1856. Now, one of the reasons I put this here, I wanted to show you, contrast it with Adamsburg. You see, these are the two major transportation routes coming through here. This is the new one. This is the railroad, the new main line of the Pennsylvania Railroad. This down here is the old one. This is the old turnpike, the southern route going into Pittsburgh. Now look at Adamsburg. You see how well populated it is. A lot of people here, a lot of houses. And you go up to Manor, what you see is a place that is, well, just starting out in a sense. I say in a sense because there had been habitation there for quite a while, actually since the 1700s. But it wasn't a really kind of a village kind of thing until the railroad showed up in 1852. This takes us forward in time to 1867, 10 years hence. This is Manor over here. It shows it in context. Harrison City and Penn. This is the town itself. What I can do is enlarge this a bit, give you a sense of what's there, what's not there. These are the houses and business places that were there in 1867. And these are the business people. These are the people who were there who were doing something. If you're from Manor, you may be related to some of these people. Now, what I'm going to deal with next, I want to show you some of these places over here, because this is what was the beginning of Manor. A grist mill. There was a blacksmith shop over here. And this was where Bushy Run came down and ran into Brush Creek. And there were a few roads going through here. And there had been a grist mill here run by the Walthauers since the 1700s. Now we go forward in time yet again. This is 10 years, actually 9 years. This takes us to 1876. The last map we saw was from 1867. But what you can see is the population has grown. You can see the businesses and houses. Things are picking up. Just to orient you, this is the north arrow here. And over here is the area that, in a sense, Manor started from, because this is where the grist mill, Walthauer's grist mill, and they had a blacksmith shop And of interest is the fact that often little villages would collect around either a grist mill or a blacksmith shop, and this area had several. But there wasn't much of a village there yet until the railroad came through in the early 1850s. Now we're looking at Walthour's mill and blacksmith shop. This over here is what was once the blacksmith shop. This was the mill. And you see a very old wooden bridge right here, and an old log cabin right here. And as we go forward in history a bit, we'll see how things change. The wooden bridge has been replaced by a metal bridge. The old log cabin is no more. And we're right in front of the place that the blacksmith shop sat, so I'm not sure if that was replaced or not. But these are Walthour's places just to the west of what was becoming Manor Station. That was the actual mill at Manor that the Walthours had. Now what we can tell by this is that it's now a steam mill. The Walthours' first mill was definitely not a steam mill because it was in the late about 1783 or something like that. That was a water-powered mill. And there's a story that the first mill there had been back around in the 1750s, and the guy that ran that mill had been shot by an Indian. And then later on, the Walthours came. They had come from, they were Dutch. They and made their way out into western Pennsylvania. And by the time they had this mill going, steam engines had become an important thing. That smokestack wouldn't be on there unless it had a steam engine. Steam engines were important for a number of reasons, one of which was you could not run a mill all year long with an old water-turned wheel. But once the steam engines came along, you could run a mill all year long. In Hempfield Township, the first steam-driven mill showed up in 1822. And over here in Penn Township, I would like to tell you exactly what year the Walthours started their steam mill, but I don't know what that was. Maybe somebody can tell me. Now we're seeing the contemporary situation. This is where the Walthours had their mill and blacksmith shop and their farm. We're going to come down and look at that a little bit closer. This is the place right here. What you'll notice is the fact that the railroad now comes through. The railroad is the major transportation artery through here. Brush Creek Brush Run or Creek, comes through here, right through here. Coming down the hill was Bushy Run, which ran into Brush Creek right here, right at the Walthours' place. Of interest is the fact that J. Edgar Thompson, the chief engineer of the Pennsylvania Railroad, got his railroad to Pittsburgh by following the streams. He followed Brush Creek. And that's why if you look at the maps, you'll see that the railroad, the old main line, followed Brush Creek into Turtle Creek and then went the whole way into Pittsburgh. Now we're going to focus down on here a little bit. That's what's there today. This is a totally different operation, a place where they do machine work that has nothing to do with the old Walthour farm. But you see Brush Creek running by. This is Route 993 going up. This is Sand Hill Road going up right here. and we'll take another look at that. Up on Sand Hill Road, there was an old log house, and it had been there for a long time. In 1922, it was purchased by Bert Eaton from the McCutcheon family, although the McCutcheon family never actually lived there. They bought the property simply as an investment so they could sell some of it to Westmoreland Coal Company, who became a big coal operator in the area. And we'll see some mapping from that. This is the area where the Walthauers had their mill. This is Sandy Hill Road coming up here. And you see who owns this property. That's the McCutcheons. And they're right next to Westmoreland Coal Company. And here you see another example of how J. Edgar Thompson got his railroad into Pittsburgh following the streams. The red lines are the railroads. That's the main line. This is the Manor Valley Branch Railroad, or the PRR. The blue lines are the streams. You see how the railroad follows Bush Run, Bush Creek, Brush Creek. I never get that right. Now we move on to one more map, and then that will be it for today. This just shows you on the same map coal properties superimposed. This was Westmoreland Coal. They owned this over here. And Westmoreland Coal had this over here, but other companies also had this at different times. And if you're wondering where Westmoreland City got its name, well, look who owned this property, Westmoreland Coal. And they had a mine here called the Biddle Mine. And over here, there was a mine right up here, right up north of Manor. The little town, company Patchtown that serviced it was called Jimtown. And I think we've done enough for this right now. And we're going to sign off, and we'll see you again with some more.